It's become clear what you guys need from me, and that's more powerful budget decks. So here we are. This one's a super interesting Demir build based around the devil on your shoulder kind of concept and clue tokens. So let's get into it. As with any self-respecting commander deck, we'll start with the commander. We've got Inquisitor Eisenhorn for 2, a blue and a black for a 2/3. You may reveal the first card you draw each turn as you draw it. Whenever you reveal an instant or sorcery card this way, create Cherubal, a legendary 4/4 black demon token with flying. He's also got, whenever Inquisitor Eisenhorn deals combat damage to a player, investigate that many times. So, in spirit of my weight loss journey, here's the skinny. This deck uses plenty of cantrips like Opt and sacrifice effects like Nasty End to both create and utilize the 4/4 legendary demon that Inquisitor Eisenhorn can create when we reveal an instant or sorcery as our first draw, along with some cards to buff our commander like Blackblade Reforged and some unblockable effects like Aqueous Form. We can seriously maximize the amount of clues we're creating with our commander, throw in some really good interactions with said clues, and we get some really good ways to end a game as well. And if that sounds interesting to you, we can really get into the meat and potatoes here. Oh, a big part of what makes this deck tick is being able to create a lot of clues with our commander's deal combat damage trigger. And one thing that's important in making a lot of clues is making sure our commander's power is pretty big. So let's talk about some of the buff spells we run in this list. Starting out, we got Trepanation Blade, which is a 3 colorless artifact equipment. Whenever equipped creature attacks, defending player reveals cards from the top of his or her library until they reveal a land card. The creature gets +1/+0 until end of turn. For each card revealed this way, that player puts the revealed cards into their graveyard. This is great. Passive mill is incredibly annoying. In my last few games I've played, it's came up multiple times. Just milling 6 or 7 cards, I felt like they played 6 or 7 removal spells on me. It's really annoying. And this just will give it a huge buff as well. We're making a ton of clue tokens. Great option. So is Cranial Plating. For 2 colorless, you can either equip it for 1 or you can equip it at instant speed for 2 black. Equipped creature gets +1/+0 for each artifact we control. So pair that with the fact that our commander gives us clues for the amount of damage he's dealing. This might be one of the best cards in the list. Piper Wright Public Reporter is another great one. I didn't buy a lot of the Fallout set, so this one slipped under my nose a bit, but like upon researching cards for the deck, this is another great one. 1 and a blue for a 1/2. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player, investigate that many times. Just another version of our commander. And whenever you sacrifice a clue, put a 1/1 counter on target creature you control. Yeah, this probably would have been the commander if it was black-blue, but it's very good in here. Blackblade Reforged is a classic, coming in at 2. It equips for 7, but it equips for 3 to legendary creatures. Equipped creature gets +1/+1 for each land you control. Just, again, a really cheap way to give your commander a huge buff. I love builds like this because the commander reads very unsuspecting, but then when you start looking for cards that fit this weird, kind of specific, seemingly underpowered build, you get a lot of really powerful stuff like Imperial Plate. 2 colorless, equips for 2. Equipped creature gets +1/+1 for each card in your hand. Yeah, again, pairs with the clues incredibly well to make your commander huge. You get more clues, you draw more cards. Nettlecyst is another fantastic one, a 3 mana equipment that equips for 2. Living Weapon, so it enters with the 0/0 that it's equipped to, and equipped creature gets +1/+1 for each artifact and enchantment you control. So with all the clues we've got in play, another great way to keep our commander huge. Finishing off the buff package here, we've got Glamdring from the Lord of the Rings set, coming in for 2 colorless, equips for 3. Equipped creature has first strike and gets +1/+0 for each instant and sorcery card in your graveyard. Whenever equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, you may cast an instant or sorcery spell from your hand with mana value less than or equal to that damage without paying its mana cost. Tons of cantrips in this deck, so instants and sorceries are going to be in the graveyard. We're going to be casting instants and sorceries, so when it deals damage, we'll be able to cheat some stuff into play. Honestly, another card that slipped under my nose, but super good. Love this thing. Next, we've got a 5-card unblockable package in the deck to help our commander get through and, help us guaranteed get those clue tokens we so desperately crave. Aqueous Form is 1 blue for an aura. Enchant creature can't be blocked, and when it enters, you scry 1, so this does double duty by setting our top card and making him unblockable. Martha Jones is 2 and a blue for a 3/2. When she enters the battlefield, investigate, and whenever you sacrifice a clue, her and up to 1 target creature can't be blocked this turn, which, very good. This might be one of the best cards in the deck. Access Tunnel and Rogue's Passage are 2 lands that'll allow our commander to get through. Access Tunnel, as long as our commander isn't buffed, it allows it to get through, which is a little bit of a nombo, but I still think it's good enough to get that guaranteed 2 damage in. And Rogue's Passage, no matter how big our commander is, will let it through. And then Trailblazer's Boots pretty much gives the equipped creature unblockable, gives it non-basic land walk. Almost everyone runs non-basic lands. I think, you know what? Everyone runs non-basic lands. So This is essentially an unblockable. Very good to throw on your commander. So I figured this is a good time to get into the little ETB package we've got. We've got 5 cards in this deck that are like gonna really be firing off with all these clues entering the battlefield, and they're all extremely budget friendly and actually really powerful with the amount of clues we're gonna be creating. Arcbound Condor is fantastic. 2 and 2 black for a 0/0 with flying, modular 3, so it enters with 3/1/1 counters. Whenever another artifact enters the battlefield under your control, target creature an opponent controls gets -1/-1. This could wipe out some serious problems on the board fairly quickly every turn. Contraband Kingpin is really good. A blue and a black for a 1/4 lifelink. Whenever an artifact enters the battlefield under your control, scry 1. Sky Swimmer Koi is 3 and a blue for a 3/3 flying. Whenever an artifact enters on our side, we may draw a card. If we do, discard a card. Transplant Theorist is essentially the same thing, except it's a 2/4, and we can pay 2 to put target card from our graveyard on the bottom of our library, which, you know, may be useful. And then finishing off this package, we've got Kappa Cannoneer for 5 and a blue with Improvise, Ward 4. It's a 4/4. Whenever an artifact enters the battlefield under our control, put a 1/1 counter on Kappa Cannoneer, and it can't be blocked this turn. This one is a little bit of a nombo, I'm not gonna lie, because when we're attacking with our commander and it deals combat damage, we can't swing with the Kappa that turn, so we can't utilize its unblockable, but it will get a ton of 1/1 counters from artifacts entering. It can be played extremely cheap because of the Improvise. It has Ward 4. We have an unblockable package in this deck, so we can make it unblockable so we can attack with it later while it's big. So I still think it's good in here. In the same vein as the ETB artifact engines, we've also got some draw engines, just some cards that'll be firing off while we're drawing cards from our cantrips, our clues. Emerald's Messenger is really good for 1 and a blue. A 2/1 Devoid flying. When you draw your second card each turn, create a 0/1 Eldrazi that you can sack for mana. Psychosis Crawler is a 5 mana artifact creature whose power and toughness is equal to the number of cards in our hand, and whenever we draw a card, each opponent loses 1, so this can bring home a game. Ethereal Investigator is 3 and a blue for a 2/3 with flying. When Ethereal Investigator enters the battlefield, investigate X times, where X is the number of opponents you have. Whenever you draw your second card each turn, create a 1/1 spirit with flying. While Alondra Sky Dreamer is 2 and a 2 blue for a 2/4. Whenever we draw our second card, we get a 2/2 with flying. And whenever you draw your 5th card each turn, her and all drakes you control, 6/6/6/6/6, each get +X/+X until end of turn, where X is the number of cards in your hand. And then finishing off this package, we've got Gixian Puppeteer. For 3 and a black, we get a 4/3. Whenever you draw your second card each turn, each opponent loses 2 life and you gain 2. Whenever Gixian Puppeteer dies, return another target creature with mana value 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. The second part, we don't have a ton of hits. First part is just good to be draining people every turn when we're drawing 2 cards, which can happen quite a bit in this deck. We also have a little package in here to utilize the demon that we're going to sometimes get. So with our commander, when we're drawing all these cards from the clues, if we're revealing our first draw each turn as an instant or sorcery, we get the 4/4 demon. So we can utilize that demon because it's a legendary. You say, hey, there's not really a point in that, because if we draw a card and it's a sorcery and then we pass turn, draw a card, it's a sorcery, we just get another 4/4 demon that's legendary. Very true. But we can utilize the demon in a lot of cases in a way that's really fun. First off, Altar's Reap, 1 and a black for an instant. As an additional cost, sack a creature, draw 2 cards. Let's say you hit that instant or sorcery and you're going to get the 4/4 demon that's going to enter and just make you sack 1 anyway. You can just Altar's Reap in response, get your 2 cards, then your new demon will replace your old one. Costly Plunder is the exact same idea. Kuru Bloodsucker is actually a really good one, because not only can you pay 2 and a black to sack another creature and give it a 1/1 counter, which is a great way to replace that demon and get something out of it. It also has whenever a creature you control with toughness 4 or greater dies, each opponent loses 2 and you gain 2. And wouldn't you know it, the demon's a 4/4. So this one's like actually really good. Lethal Throwdown isn't as good because it's a sorcery, but I still think it's really good in here. You can sack a creature or a modified creature to destroy target creature or planeswalker. If it was a modified creature you sacrifice, draw a card, which is really good because we have equipments and we have equipments and auras in this deck. So it being modified isn't out of the question at all. And Nasty End is like the perfect card for this deck, coming in at 1 and a black for an instant. Additional cost, sack a creature, draw 2 cards. If the sack creature was legendary, draw 3 cards, and the demon's legendary. So that's really good. We've got another small 4-card package of death trigger cards, not for creatures though, for those clue tokens. Mirkwood Bats, of course, for 3 and a black at 2/3 with flying. Whenever you create or sacrifice a token, each opponent loses 1 life. Nadir's Nightblade is a great option for 2 and a black. For a 1/3, whenever a token you control leaves the battlefield, each opponent loses 1 and you gain 1, so all of our clues are draining, which is great. Moonstone Eulogist is a fantastic new one from the Bloombarrow Commander for 3 and 2 black at 4/4. Flying, whenever a creature an opponent controls dies, you create a blood token. I love blood tokens. I think there needs to be way more cards that make them, so love that. Whenever you sacrifice an artifact, put a 1/1 counter on Moonstone Eulogist and you gain 1 life. You just get a giant flying beater for sacking clues. You also get blood tokens. You also gain life. Eloise, Nephelian Sleuth, is also really good. For 3, a blue and a black at 4/4. Whenever another creature you control dies, investigate. Whenever you sacrifice a token, surveil 1. So all of our clue token sacks are going to let us surveil 1, which will let us set up the instant or sorcery hit so we can get our demon. So this is really good. And then if any of our stuff dies, we get to make more clues. So sure. So a really good way to control like whether or not you're going to be hitting the demon and whether or not you can make certain lines of play in this deck is to have access to Cantrips, which are low CMC cards that draw you a card. So essentially they're low CMC cards that will replace themselves. And for this deck specifically, those being at instant speed is very good because then that lets us draw our first card on everyone's turn. And if those cards can scry or set the top of our deck in some way, they're really good because they let us make sure we can get the demon by guaranteeing the top cards in instant or sorcery. So starting off this package, we've got Council's Deliberation for 1 and a blue. It's an instant that draws us a card. And then whenever we scry, if we control an island, we may exile Council's Deliberation from your graveyard and draw a card. Just good. This is a good cantrip. This is exactly what we need in this deck. It allows us to draw our first card during a person's turn. And then with all of our scry effects that we run, we get to do it again. That seems good. Deduce comes in for 1 and a blue at instant speed. Draw a card, investigate. Deliberate is 1 and a blue at instant speed. Scry 2 and draw a card. Force Away is 1 and a blue, instant speed. Return target creature to its owner's hand. If you control a creature with power 4 or greater, you may draw a card. If you do, discard a card. Removal plus a cantrip. This one's very good. Pithlane Knots is 1 and a blue for an instant. Tap target creature, scry 1, draw a card. Stops a big attack from happening. Opens someone up for an attack with our commander. Scries and draws us a card. Also very good in this list. Omen of the Sea is 1 and a blue for an enchantment, but it has flash. And when it enters, you scry 2 and draw a card. You can pay 2 and a blue to crack it and scry 2. This one provides a ton of scry. Essentially the same thing as an instant speed cantrip, so very good. Opt is the classic cantrip, 1 blue for an instant, scry 1, draw 1. Think Twice is 1 and a blue to draw a card. You can flash it back for 2 and a blue, so this is more of a double use cantrip, which again, super good for getting your first draw on multiple turns. Consider 1 blue at instant speed to surveil 1, draw a card. And then finally Brainstorm, 1 blue instant speed to draw 3 cards, put 2 cards back on top of your library. This one's great because you can set up your draws for your next 2 turns if you have 2 more follow-up cantrips, which you can hit with the Brainstorm. So now we get to talk about the fun part of the deck. How we're going to win the game in this deck. It's pretty straightforward. We've talked about a couple of the ways. Looking at my Enders list, I forgot to put Disciple of the Vault into the death triggers section. So Disciple of the Vault. Our clues are going to make an opponent lose 1 life. It's also in our Enders because it, along with Mirkwood Bats, Nadir's Nightblade, and Kiru Bloodsucker, is one way we can win the game. Just draining opponents for our little cycle happening over here, our little value engine firing off. Outside of that, though, we've got 3 big ways to just bring home the game in this deck. Tangle Trove Kelp is insane. 5 and 2 blue for a 6/6 with Ward 2. At the beginning of each combat, other clues you control become 6/6 plants in addition to their other types, and you can pay 2 to sacrifice Tangle Trove Kelp and draw a card, because it itself is a clue. Yeah, so with our commander, we can easily get 6, 10, 15, 20 clue tokens out, and turning all those into 6/6s is gonna end the game, which is fantastic. Rise and Shine is the exact same logic. For 1 and a blue, you can turn 1 of your artifacts into a 4/4, or you can overload it for 4 and 2 blue. So turn all your artifacts into 4/4s. Same thing. If you have enough clues, you win the game. And then finally, Ukima is an interesting one that I thought actually really works pretty well in here. For 1, a black and a blue, we get a 2/2 that's unblockable, and when it leaves the battlefield, it deals X damage to target player, and you gain X life, where X is its power. We run plenty of buff spells that are equipments. Ukima can also be a really big creature, and then the opponents just have a really big Ukima that's unblockable that's smacking face, and if they even deal with it, it's just a big Ukima that's going to drain someone for a really large amount when it dies. I think having Ukima along with something else is where the game wins. I don't think Ukima by itself necessarily wins the game. I think if you have Ukima with like a couple other sources of pressure out, it kind of gets lost in the other sources of pressure, and before your opponents realize it, they're backed into a corner where they can no longer remove Ukima, and if he stays, he's a huge wolf that's bashing everyone's face. Someone's got to bite that Ukima bullet. So we'll hop into the basics, wrap up this deck tech, do a couple test hands, couple test runs, and then we'll get into some of the upgrade suggestions that I suggest if you want to build this list. As far as mana rocks and ramp is concerned, we run Charcoal Diamond, Emerald's Messenger, Prismatic Lens, Sky Diamond, Inspiring Statuary, Everflowing Chalice, Wayfarer's Bauble, Arcane Signet, Dimir Signet, Felwar Stone, and Mind Stone. As far as card draw is concerned, we run Costly Plunder, Deduced, Nasty End, Piper Wright, and Eloise, only because you're gonna say it's a really small draw package. Our commander makes so many clues. We don't need a ton of draw. We draw on a lot of cards. As far as removal is concerned, we've got Force Away, Hero's Downfall, Lethal Throwdown, Murderous Cut, Neutralize, Feed the Swarm, Negate, and Reality Shift. And for board wipes, we've got Aetherize, along with Terracer's Devastation, which I kind of want to read because this is one that I was unfamiliar with, so maybe some of you guys are. X, 2 colorless, and 2 black. You lose X life and create X tapped Power Stone tokens. Then all creatures get -1/-1 until end of turn for each artifact you control. Yeah, you don't even have to pay the X on this. You just pay 2 and 2 black with enough clues in play and you're just like wipe the board. So it's like Damnation on a budget, some say. Getting into lands, we run Palaka Caverns, which flips into Palaka Predation, Choked Estuary, Darkwater Catacombs, Fetid Pool, Sunken Hollow, Temple of Deceit, Ice Tunnel, Selendi Visions, which switches into Selendi Isle on the other side, the aforementioned Access Tunnel and Rogue's Passage, along with 11 swamps and 17 islands. And with that, that is the basic Lotus starter deck precon you can buy right now for under $50. That is pretty efficient, pretty strong. What I want to get into now, I want to draw a couple test hands just to show you what they look like. I want to play a few turns into a game, and then I want to get into some of the upgrades that the deck could use. So we're over on Moxfield now. We're going to go and draw a couple of test hands and play a couple of test games. That hand looks great, but we'll deal 3 after this hand, and then we'll run the third one, or whatever the keepable one is after the third one, and see what we're working with. Let's deal 1. So we got 2 blue, Inspiring Statuary, Omen of the Sea, Trescipent Blade, or whatever, Cantrip hand can command. I may keep that. It's a weird one because you can play Selendi first turn, Island second turn, Omen of the Sea, try to draw. That should be enough to get you the swamp. But I don't know. It depends on how you know, casual the play group is. We'll draw again. Island, Swamp, Sky Diamond, Kuru Bloodsucker, Brainstorm, Neutralize. Definitely keep that one. That's fine. We get a piece of removal on the counter spell. We can set up the Kuru, get the turn 3 commander out, which is great. We have the cantrip we can play to set up more cantrips with our commander, which is awesome. And then we have the way to sack the demon, so that's all great. Ice Tunnel, Island, Prismatic Lens, Selendi Vision, Mirkwood Bats, Force Away, Council. This one's awesome. This is a great hand. Piece of removal, that's also a cantrip. Another cantrip that comes back if we scry. Mirkwood Bats, we can set up one of our win cons. Mana Ramp, Selendi to dig for an instant or sorcery, or just be a land. We're drawing into another cantrip that scries and draws. Eloise, Lethal Throwdown. We need to hit a land soon. We hit the Omen, though, which would have scried and hit us into the 2 land. So that would have ended up being pretty fine. One more hand. Fetid Pool, Island, Wayfarers, Trailblazers, Altars, Reap, Consider. Awesome. We can run a play test on that one. Multiplayer, so we go first and draw. We're going to play Fetid Pools and then pass. Next turn, we're going to draw, or not pass, sorry, Wayfarers Bauble, obviously. Next turn, we're going to play an Island, and we're going to crack the Wayfarers. Comes back around to us. We're chilling at 4 mana now, which means we can play our commander. We'll drop a little Eisenhorn. I don't think he's a big enough threat to be soaking up removal spells, especially at a casual table. So we're going to play Inquisitor Eisenhorn. Pass. Comes back around. We're going to play a Swamp. We're going to go ahead and drop Trailblazer's Boots and equip those bad boys to our Eisenhorn. Hit somebody for 2. That's going to create us 2 clue tokens. And then we pass the turn. During one of our opponent's turns, we're going to play Consider, which lets us surveil one, then draw a card. So we're going to look at our top card. Our top card is Deliberate. We're going to keep that there. And then we're going to draw a card, reveal it because it's our first card drawn on an opponent's turn with Inquisitor. That's going to create us Inquisitor's Demon token. So we will create just this as the demon. That's our 4/4 demon. And then when it comes back to us, we have 2 tokens, 2 clues, a 4/4 demon, and an unblockable commander. Drawing into Charcoal Diamond, playing an Ice Tunnel. We are definitely just going to drop Mirkwood Bats so we can set up one of our win engines on field already. And then with that, we're going to bash someone for 4 with our Flying Demon and then 2 unblockable with our commander. We're going to make 2 more clue tokens, and we're looking pretty good. This is what we do now. This is who we are now. We do this, comes back around us. We're drawing Aquarius form is great because we can just throw it onto another big thing or just wait to get our commander out to do it. Contraband Kingpin is going to be fantastic right here because we can just drop it. It turns each one of our clue cracks into a scry. I said clue cracks, all right? YouTube, don't you demonetize me for that. We'll turn every clue that enters into a scry one, which will help us set up for more, instant sorcery hits. For example, we swing with our commander, we get 2 more clues. 2 clues enter, so we get to scry 2. Mind Stone, we're gonna put it at the bottom. Hero's Downfall, we'll keep at the top. And then during another person's turn, we're gonna play Deliberate, where we get to scry 2 and draw 1. We're gonna scry 2, put that one at the bottom. Draw the Hero's Downfall and reveal it. We get our demon replaced here. In response to our demon getting replaced, we will play an Altar's Reap, which as an additional cost, we sack a creature. Sack the demon, draw 2 cards, replace the demon. Bada bing, bada boom. I rest my case, build the deck, it looks really fun. So hopping over to the upgrades package that I've made for this. I'll also leave a link to this in the description as well. There are some cards that I think could seriously upgrade this deck. Academy Manufacturer is one of them. 3 for a 1/3 if you would create a clue. You also make a food and a treasure, so all of our clues from our commander is going to be, also a food and treasure. Cyberdrive Awakener, fantastic. 5 and a blue for a 4/4 flying. Other artifact creatures you control have flying. When it enters, it turns all your non-creature artifacts into 4/4s. It's like the other 2 we run in the deck. This one's just $12, so, if you want to upgrade. Marionette Master and Marionette Apprentice turns all of our clue sacrificing into draining on opponents, which are great ways to end a game. They're both coming in at around $3. Brotherhood Regalia's nuts. Again, I don't really look at certain sets because I never played Assassin's Creed, really. This is a really good card. 2 for an equipment that equips to legendaries for 1 or equips normally for 3. Equipped creature has Ward 2, is an assassin in addition to its other types, and can't be blocked, which is really good. Just, our commander can't be blocked. Way harder to kill. Equipped for 1 is like super good. It's an assassin, which is cool. And of course, finishing this off, Lightning Greaves and Swiftfoot Boots. Those are both coming in at, Swiftfoot Boots is $350 right now. Lightning Greaves is $750. So it's just a little over budget for the list. Those, of course, are going to be good in this list. They're good in every list. They're also just good at protecting our commander and making sure we can get clues the turn he comes out, which is good. And yeah, those are my upgrade suggestions. There's obviously going to be plenty more upgrade suggestions that I'm sure you've come up with, and if you have, drop a comment of what you think we should be putting in here. The upgrades come in at $40.23, so if you want to buy all these upgrades, while the deck comes in at $48.86. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you want to show some support, make sure you like, subscribe, comment, do all that stuff. We're trying to hit 10K by the end of the year. If you want to show us some additional support, like the people you're seeing over my blurred mug, you can head over to the Patreon. It starts as low as $1. Really appreciate all you guys. I really hope you enjoyed the video. I keep trying to step up how in depth we go on these decks because you guys seem to really enjoy the deck videos. I'm gonna go back to editing and writing some scripts, and with that, you can call me a pharmacist because I'm gonna go back to writing some scripts. Bars. I'll see you guys.